Welcome, welcome. If you're here, you've arrived at the Beonair Forum with our guest, Jeff Conway. We're going to allow a little quick second or two for a few more people to show up. And we have Tony Lopez has just jumped on the screen as well. So if you would like to, in advance of my welcome to you, if you want to put your name in the chat and let us know where you're here from, you're really in for a great hour. We've got these two guys here who are prepared to take you on a great journey. So, okay, it looks like we've got a pretty good number that are signed on. And so, you know what? I think I'm going to start my welcome so we don't waste 1 minute here. For everybody that's here, my name is Linda Lejeski. I am the National Employer Representative for the Beonair Network of Media Schools. And if you're not familiar, the Beonair Network of Media Schools includes Ohio Media School, Illinois Media School, Colorado Media School, and Miami Media School. We are 7 schools across these couple of states. We're in 3 time zones, so it's always interesting when you're with the Beonair Network. The Beonair Forum has been around for a little bit more than 3 years now. The thought behind it is a career service initiative, and we bring you together. We bring our students, our alumni, our extended community together to inspire, to inform, and to connect you to the people that are in the industry that you would like to learn from and ask questions of. You're welcome to go to our Beonair YouTube channel. I'm going to put information in the chat once the guys get started. And if you're interested in learning more about school, I'll put a little link in the chat also so you can connect with us and we could talk to you about opportunity. But the reason why you're here are for these gentlemen that are on the screen. And as I said, you are in for a great big treat. I would like to welcome Jeff Conway. He is really our big guest that's in the house. Jeff is an Emmy nominated and most viewed Hollywood entertainment writer for Forbes on Forbes platform. Jeff's interviews can be seen in a lot of places. You'll find his interviews on Good Morning America. You're going to find them in People, Access Hollywood, E! News, and the list goes on and on. And the people that he's interviewed is most impressive. It's going to be so much fun to listen to him talk about the variety of folks that he's had a chance to connect with. And he's going to tell you the real people, just like everybody else can tell you a little bit more about that story. Jeff was also an instructor at Illinois Media School, Illinois Center for Broadcasting, for almost 10 years. That's a long time, Jeff. And
it is.
Students that you had and graduates who have learned from you and have really been able to build their careers and grow because of the guidance that you provided. So with that passion, we couldn't think of a better guest than you to have with us tonight to talk about interviewing and your journey and share your great advice with us. Also, I want to welcome Tony Lopez. Tony Lopez is in the house. Tony, thank you so much for returning again tonight to the moderator spot. Tony is a radio and TV producer, on-air kind of guy. He also has a podcast, The Parley, which is a very popular podcast. He is an alumni of Illinois Media School. He was an instructor at Illinois Media School and just recently promoted to instruction coordinator, and we couldn't be more proud of him. So these two guys together are going to be magical. I am going to just give you a little bit of advice. Sit back, enjoy. If you want to ask any questions of our guest, Jeff, please put them in the chat. I'll be moderating the chat and just enjoy every bit of this. Gentlemen, I'm going to hand the mic over to you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Linda. Hey, Tony.
How's it going, Jeff? Thank you, Linda. Appreciate you as always. Jeff, if you didn't know, Linda's intros are they've been submitted for Academy Awards, and
honestly, she's super heartwarming. I like it, Linda.
She sets us up for success, is what she does.
I like it. I dig it. I'm here for it.
Jeff, it's crazy. I've been dying to talk to you. We've never crossed paths.
But like so close, like almost.
So close. It's always been so close. Like, your name's always mentioned around campus, back in the day and now. And we never really got
hopefully good things. All good things.
Oh, of course.
Good to hear.
But it's an honor to have you here on the forum. We can't wait to have this hour here. and talk about some of the things you've done, and of course,
Yeah.
the biggest thing with the forum is being able to almost counsel a little bit some of our students who are going through the journey, right, that we've gone through, and listening to experiences, because I think that's important, right, when you're doing something of this nature, which is not a normal thing, right? It's not your typical job
No.
description. There's different different ways to go about it. So I can't wait to dive into it. But Jeff, thank you for being here, man. Honored to finally talk to you.
It's
And
a
let's
pleasure. Sounds good. Also, congratulations on your promotion, instructional promotion.
Thank you. Appreciate it, man. I
Very
love
cool.
to teach. The education side of things have taken me have taken my heart a little bit here. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm liking this.
But I know you've worked hard and earned it, so congrats. And I want to say really quick too to everybody that's on this, hello, and happy to have you guys with us.
Absolutely. Well, Jeff, man, we know what you do. You have the flyer says it itself. We're going to dive into more of it, but you've been able to jump into the media field in a way that a lot of people dream of, right? Being able to interview, high profile people from the entertainment industry to just any industry, really, from what I've seen.
Yeah.
We'll talk about your journey there, but really, how do you feel? How do you your passion for this industry when it comes to the things that you've gone through? How is it now after your long career so far? How do you feel about it right now?
It's funny, Tony. Like my passion really hasn't changed. Like every day is exciting to me, and I think if you keep it that way, it keeps it fun for you. If you become kind of like a hamster on a wheel, and it's kind of like another day. But every day, I don't know who I'm going to interview next, and that's kind of thrilling about our profession, our industry, isn't it, Tony? That we get these exciting gets, and we get these exciting conversations with people that are prolific, but also are just humans like us, and we can get them in those candid conversations just to speak as a human. We appreciate it, but I think also our viewers appreciate seeing these people are, yes, they might be all over the news, they might be making these big salaries, but a lot of them are just normal people and want to be treated normally. So that's my favorite part of this industry.
Yeah, no, for sure. I can definitely relate when I did I was at Comcast Sportsnet for 3 years, and when you meet professional players, sports players and athletes, they're just like you.
Yeah, yeah.
They're annoyed by the same things as you, and you get to really feel that energy and really relate to them when you meet
Yeah.
them.
But even
Definitely.
like sports people, celebrities, don't get me wrong. There are some people that want to be treated special, but it's very few. Most of them want to be treated normal. Some you can tell by their mannerisms, they want to be treated a little bit more
Yeah.
special person, and that's okay.
Yes, there's plenty of those. Absolutely. Jeff, where'd you get your start? How did it all start for you? Where do we begin with your story, really?
I studied broadcast journalism at Illinois State University, and I went, graduated, didn't have a job because I didn't want to do a smaller market personally myself. There was like Quincy, Illinois, which I think are great places, but I just didn't want to start in these smaller markets. So I said, I'll go to Chicago, which is my hometown, and I'll work as an internship. So I worked 6 months full time, no pay, for a entertainment NBC like around town TV show,
Mhm.
and I knew I had to do it. Like I had to earn my way. Um, it was rough, financially. Luckily, I was still living with my parents, and I was grateful for that. Otherwise, I couldn't have. I worked full time, and then I worked and became the show's sole producer when our producer stepped away. I became a correspondent on the show. Then I became a TV host on various Chicago channels on Comcast and whatnot. And then in 2020, when the pandemic happened, all the red carpets in Chicago shut down.
Mm.
And I had to figure out something to continue to do journalism in this quarantine space. So I started reaching out to different companies like Forbes, and fortunately, they took me on, and I became their Hollywood entertainment interviewer and writer. And the rest is history. I've been doing that for the last 4 years now. I just had my 4 year anniversary, and it's been a blast. I've interviewed the likes of Kevin Hart, Halle Berry, Ryan Reynolds, Ryan Gosling, Blake Lively, Reese Witherspoon, um, Julie Andrews, Dick Van Dyke, Carol Burnett. It's been really amazing and cool and wonderful. I got kissed by Halle Berry during an interview. I haven't washed my face since. So, so it's been a lot of fun. And so that's kind of the summary, the cliff notes to my journey so far.
That's awesome. And of course, besides that amazing journey and the things that you've done, also you were an instructor at Illinois Media School.
Mhm.
So how was your experience with that? And basically what advice um, would you give to everyone in the audience after looking at what you've seen on the education side of things?
Absolutely, yeah. I worked for about 9, 10 years part time around my other media work at the Illinois Media School, which was the Illinois Center for Broadcasting.
Yes, I see.
And yeah, ICB, and now it's IMS, and I loved it. It was great to work with the staff there. I love the students. I honestly, as a teacher, I'm sure Tony, you'll attest to this too. We learn as much from the students as we teach them, because they are such unique minds, and it's fun to give our skills back. I think in our media industry, it can be a very selfless ego or selfish ego job, and to be able to give back and to give your talents and show your talents to help craft the next generation feels really good. And I love my time at IMS, and I still keep in touch with several of my students that are now graduates working in broadcasting, most of them, which is great to see. So it's great to see and still be an advisor when they want it. And I know they appreciate it still, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Giving back is always amazing. And you're such a talented person. I mean, I know the students were blessed with the opportunity to have you as an instructor. Um,
Oh, thanks.
with your journey, and many journeys, there's a lot of adaptability that happens in the industry, right? You have to change, and we can talk about from 2010 to now, like how the industry has changed, and from different things, social media, networking. I mean, you name it, it's there. But how important is it to adapt in this industry? I mean, because things change often.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when I started in school, this will date me. I was in 2008, a college graduate, and there was, some cable, there was network broadcast TV. Now we have Netflix, Hulu, YouTube, TikTok, everything. We have so many different outlets. So I feel like it's actually a very exciting time for broadcasters, because we used to be pigeonholed with like five potential outlets. Now the world is your oyster. If you really get creative and create a cool viral clip, viral interview, you can go night and day from influencer to radio podcast host. So I think it's a really exciting time. I'm sure you'd agree that this is an exciting time to be a part of journalism and media, because there's so many ways that you can go at it. There's not like a one route anymore. You can pave your own path, and I recommend pave your own path, because a lot of people are trying to do this. So what's going to make you different is my best advice that I can give the students right now. Find that special question, find that special thing you do that makes it like the trademark that people will come to you. The sports people will be like, "Hey, you're going to ask me that question, Tony, because you always ask those people. I know it." Make a household name for yourself that way.
Yeah, and it is like you said. The avenues in 2024 are ridiculous now. When you started, you had to
A
go to the
few options.
to get the opportunity, or maybe write some blogs and have them look at it. So would you say right now is well, you did say is the best opportunity to do so, but if you had this back then, how do you think you'd do?
I think I would have done more. Like I'm kind of envious of these students that are coming on right now to Beonair and everywhere else at IMS and whatnot in Ohio and everywhere, because I think you have so many more outlets. The teachers can also teach to that. And some people might say like, well, we don't need these schools because we can just learn this on social media. You can't. There is still a broadcasting thing to it. That there's a skill that will set you apart from just an everyday influencer to someone that has the intelligence of knowing what's the pulse, what's going on, how to interact with these other professionals. There is still a skill that needs to be taught. And I know I definitely taught that when I was at Illinois Media School.
When it comes to this industry, besides everything, I think the word networking is like top three word to use in this industry, right?
I say it's one. It's
It,
number one for me.
the other one, there you go. Hey, I was gonna say it. I really was gonna say one, but
Yeah.
really, it is the way you find the jobs, the gigs, the future opportunities, right? Even
Mhm.
opportunities for others. Jeff Conway, you tell me your definition of, or your, I'm sorry, the importance and description of how important networking is in
Yeah.
this industry.
Yeah, Tony, I'll give you guys all an example on this. Today, I was just talking to Linda about this. I sat down for coffee, just one-on-one coffee with the showrunner of the Kelly Clarkson show here in New York. So, like, this is the head honcho. There's Kelly Clarkson, and then the showrunner, the person that runs the whole show. And we just had coffee today because I did an interview with her a few weeks back while I've been here in New York on the show. And I was like, hey, can we just grab a coffee? We had such a good rapport during the interview. Can we meet again? And again, it's just staying on their radar, grabbing a coffee, being playful, talking about what you can do in case they ever have an opening. So again, I'm trying to show this example is network, be creative, build those relationships because you never know what they can come out of. So yeah, networking, meeting the right people, also making sure that you follow up with these people. So for anybody, you see them at an event, at a podcast, get their email if you can, their social media, keep in touch with them. It's not one thing just to meet them. You got to keep on their radar because there might be an opportunity that comes up and now you're top of mind because they remembered you and they saw your work and the cool creations that you can do. So yes, I think as much as skill matters, and I think we all pride ourselves on the skill that we've built, if you don't network and meet the right people, it's just not the same. Unless you're a nepo baby and you have like a director father and such, which I do not, you know, then you need to network. You need to be clever. You need to be strategic, but still stay genuine. There's a lot of people that are overly conniving about making that next play. You also got to stay genuine because I feel like in today's world, I'm sure you could agree with this, Tony, people can tell the difference between fake and authenticity. You got to stay authentic in your pursuits and have a good nature to you and show that you're easy to work with, all those things.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm definitely, I'm gonna, I'm gonna say the same thing to y'all. Pay attention to what he just said. That was so very, very important. And when it comes to networking, Jeff, that's key. But now I feel like this has evolved into a top three, category, which is branding. Right, branding is now a huge thing because a lot of people that are doing podcasts, it's their own project, it's their own show. And so speak on just the importance of branding in itself and how it's evolved over the years, but now how important it is in today's age.
Well, I think branding has evolved because of social media. I'll speak to just like social media and Instagram for any of us on this call right now. Going on Instagram, people start following you for a certain reason. Like, luckily, people follow me because I put out interviews for celebrities left and right, but they've come to expect that. So I always say, like, for example, say there's like a swimsuit model that has an influencer page and everybody follows her. She's got to keep putting out different swimsuit photos from her modeling or photography. And then all of a sudden, now you're just showing her as a carpenter. People can be like, well, that's not the reason why I'm following you. So I always say, you can be a little bit different, show your versatility, but also you have to stay on brand because people are following you for a reason. And if you don't keep that consistency, not only consistency, but be putting out regularly. It doesn't have to be like every hour. I think sometimes that can actually annoy people. But every day, every couple days, you have something new to put out. If you don't, then people can be like, well, why am I continuing to follow you if you just sporadically on occasion putting out one interview every 3 weeks? You got to keep it consistent. And also, I say repurpose stuff. So if you're a broadcaster, what I do every day, guys, is I go to IMDb. It's like a movie website. You scroll to the bottom of the page every day. I go, it shows you all the celebrity birthdays. And luckily, most days, I'm at the point in my career after these 16 years that I've interviewed someone on that birthday day. And so I'll repurpose, like, happy birthday, Reese Witherspoon. By the way, look at this cute photo of us interviewing back in 2012. Or here's a video clip of our fun, playful things. It's a way to repurpose your content with strategy and timeliness again. So I recommend everybody get clever in that way.
Yeah, it's one of the things. The consistency is so key when it comes to especially social media. And I think we all can relate here on the forum. Whoever's on is that when you want some content from the person that you get entertained by, you're hoping for it, right? Whether it be a reaction video, right? That's becoming very popular nowadays. Now people just reacting right on Twitch and different platforms. You want to see it, you look for it. So that is awesome advice when it comes to that. I have a couple notations from you, Jeff, here too. Just a couple notes that I like to keep for the people that I interview. And one thing is for sure. What were your personal strategies for growing when it came down to your career with Forbes? How did that strategy go for you? Was it different than
Yeah.
approaching the regular gigs that you had?
Um, I mean, yeah, so with Forbes, they didn't tell me to be like a celebrity interviewer. They just wanted me for the Hollywood section. They actually told me to do like business and like box office numbers. That wasn't my lane. And luckily, I kind of showed them that, hey, I can do good interviews and I can do this and that. I can book them. I book them all myself too, which is great. I'm sure you're the same way too, Tony. Like you book your interviews on your own a lot of the times. I book all mine on my own. Like I'm my own PR person. And so I created my own beat at Forbes. Like I found the lane that was good for me, the lane that was, you know, making a name for myself in the business, and that's what I stayed on. So I hope that kind of answers your question. But yeah, just I saw what was working for me and what readers and viewers were gravitating towards, and that's what I jumped on. So I say, like, when you kind of notice, for any of us, if you notice what's clicking and why people are running to you, stay with that. When you find that niche, you know, acknowledge it and then pounce on it is my advice.
Yeah, that's awesome. Just a reminder to our audience out there on the forum at 6:15 Central Time, 7:15 Eastern. That'd be 5:15 Mountain Time. We're going to be taking questions, so it's a Q&A session. So be ready. That's going to be happening within the next 50. Well, actually, I can't even do time right. Next 25 minutes or so. So be ready for that. We're going to ask questions. Jeff will answer anything that you guys ask on the forum. There is a chat section, so please stay in tune with us as we continue our interview here on the forum with Jeff Conway. Jeff, let's get to some fun stuff. First interview.
Right.
Who was it? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was. So it's not going to be exciting for you guys, but unless you're like a theater person. But I was in college still, and there was a guy named Adam Pascal, who is one of the original actors from the Rent musical. He was also in the film version too. And he was great. But again, I was so nervous. Like I was so like, oh gosh, this isn't gonna go well, and it turned out fine. So like I always say too, if you guys are nervous, I still get nervous during certain interviews. Like I say, use that adrenaline. I'm sure you too, Tony. If you have like a big star, like sports star coming on, it's a little nerve wracking because you want to make sure you get it right because you care. But also, make sure just you're well prepared and be yourself, and it's going to work out. I think sometimes we can get in our heads, but no, be ready, have the right questions, and you'll be just fine. But I also say don't always rely on your questions because what I used to do as a journalist is I would ask a question and I was so nervous to get to the next one. I would even listen to what they were saying to me. I was just waiting for them to finish. And then I'd watch the tape back and be like, wait, they said that. I would have had the perfect follow up that was even in my list of questions. So, my biggest advice as an interviewer for anybody, and whether it's radio, podcast, TV, is to, live in the moment, actually listen. Because sometimes the best question you're going to ask during a whole interview was a random follow up that you thought of in that moment because they said something that kind of ignited that interest of like, oh, I gotta ask them that now instead. So again, be present. Don't get so nervous that you gotta stick to your questions. Go beyond that, listen, because sometimes their best question comes in the moment.
Do you remember how did you land the Adam interview?
Oh, so I was working for like a TV student-run TV news station at Illinois State University, and I think I was actually assigned. They knew I was the entertainment beat, but they assigned me. Um, but I was excited. I was so excited because I didn't have any celebrities. And mind you, for a lot of people, he's not that big of a celebrity. But for me, I remember going and being like, "Oh my God, Adam Pascal is a celebrity." Um, and yeah, so that was my first one. It went really well actually. Um, and yeah, I was probably about 20, 21 years old. So it was my first one. So,
Man,
yeah.
you were fresh in the biz, huh?
Yes, yes. I have good lighting on me right now. I'm not telling you guys how old I am now.
I got horrible. It's yeah. I can see it though. um, Jeff, what was your most memorable? What was the one that you'll never forget? The one that just sticks in your head all the time. Maybe there's two of them. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. It's tough these days. Halle Berry was one of them, just because what I did is I was in Chicago. It was a red carpet, and a lot of the times what I do is I give gifts at the end of my interviews, and they're always strategic gifts, and not just like a keychain to be a keychain. So she was in town in 2017 for a movie called Kidnapped, where her kid gets captured and she follows the captor. It's pretty wild. And I surprised her with a birthday gift of a snow globe that was from Chicago because she's also my favorite X-Men character, Storm. So I said, hey, you're in the Windy City, just like your character in Kidnapped, just like Storm. And it said, just like you, because she's gone through some hard times herself, you know how to weather the storm. And I shook the snow globe and she went, ah, and kissed me on the cheek. So like, that was one of my favorites. Julie Andrews I interviewed recently, who was the original Mary Poppins from the 60s. She's 89 years old now, but I got to interview her for her 88th birthday and surprised her with a cupcake that had eight candles in it. And she loved it. And at the end of the interview, I was telling Linda, she says, I hope to see you again soon. So like for Mary Poppins, the woman from Sound of Music, to say, I hope to see you again soon, meant everything to me. So like those are the moments where, as a journalist, it goes beyond journalism. It's a human connection that we can appreciate in ways that we're just lucky that we get to speak to these people that seem off limits. But that's the cool thing about our industry as broadcasters. We get to often speak with people as media
Yeah.
in ways that most of society don't. So that's the cool thing about our broadcasting world too.
Yeah, no, the unexpected always happens, and you never know what's gonna. It may lead you to another opportunity, which is
Yeah.
insane. It leads me to my next question. What interview did you think you'd never land that you landed?
Trying to think. There's been a few. Um, who have I met? Matt Damon was really cool. Matt Damon, I got to interview. I didn't think I was ever going to interview Matt Damon. He actually is the co-founder of a thing called water.org, where
Okay.
he brings water infiltration systems to third world countries. So he's doing amazing work beyond his Hollywood work, Matt Damon. So I got to speak to him about that. That was really cool. So that's definitely one of the people that I was really excited to speak to. Dick Van Dyke, also a Mary Poppins guy and like a 90-something-year-old legend. Um, for anybody that's a little bit slightly older, like a millennial like myself, the Mr. Feeney from Boy Meets World, his name is
What
Bill Daniels.
sorry,
Oh, yeah.
I'm a diehard Boy Meets World fan. You interviewed Mr.
Oh,
T, Bill
you're gonna,
Daniels.
Tony, you're gonna love this even more. Not only did I interview him, after I interviewed him, me and him are literally best friends now. I see him every couple of weeks. We get breakfast together, me and him. He's 97 years old. 97 years old.
Yes. I follow him. We're gonna have to
Yeah.
talk after this forum, bro. We're gonna
Like
talk after this forum.
I call him. I call him and just chuck at him sometimes. I'm like, I sometimes I gotta be like, it's Bill, not Feeney. It's so hard to forget that he's not actually Feeney.
It's funny. I listen to Pod Meets World, their
Yeah,
podcast.
yeah.
Ryder Strong and Daniel
Yeah,
Fisher.
Dan Official, yeah.
And he's so they Corey Ben Savage is not part of it, but they do.
Yeah,
They do.
and then Will's in it. Yeah,
Will Friedle. There you go. Anyway, Die Hard. You can see the Die Hard coming out of me right now.
but again, that's the cool thing about our industry. Like I just had a Zoom with him during COVID, him and his wife. And it was from Chicago, and I moved to LA, and I was like, hey, because they live in LA, I was like, hey, I know we got to talk on Zoom, but if you guys are ever open to breakfast, I'd love to meet you in person. Just being a fan and just loving our conversation we had on Zoom. We went for one breakfast. Me, him, and his wife hit it off so well, and now we go together every like 2 months for breakfast together. It's been amazing for the last 3 years.
That's awesome, man. He's still here, man. It's a good. It's
Yeah,
good to see.
and he's sharp. He's a sharp guy.
He's everyone's favorite teacher.
He is. He is beyond you, Tony. Beyond you, Tony.
Beyond me. Oh, beyond me. Of course. No, that's awesome. That's awesome. I had another question for you. How do you set up your interviews? Do you have a producer that helps you set that up? Do you just make that call, email? How does that work?
Well, everybody's different. For me, it's just this guy. Luckily, the Forbes name helps, and I know that, and I'm grateful. But oftentimes, I'm doing research to find the publicist, find the PR, public relations person for these celebrities, and then showing my work. Because again, it's one thing for any of us to say, hey, I want to interview so-and-so. If fortunately I do have the track record now to be like, hey, well, look at my exclusive I had with Dick Van Dyke, with Julie Andrews, with Kevin Hart, with Halle Berry. When you can show them that you have large, sometimes viewership, or you connected in a special way, then they're like, yeah, sure, talk to our clients. So like, but again, that's what you can build at places like the different media schools around the country, because it's one thing to go out there, but if you don't have the way and the formula of how to create this, then you're just saying, hey, I just want to do this. But if you actually have the backing of schools that gave you that structure and that professionalism, that's why I would say like the Beonairs are super helpful.
Do you think your interviews, we talked about branding already, but do you think your interviews are different than others, or do you set up your interviews differently, or is there something unique you feel about your interviews when you go out there?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all hope to be that way. I think I do, because I think that if you're a little bit different, I ask questions that are always original. Like I don't look for questions I've heard from other journalists before, and I try to go deeper. I think for all of us though too, and I'm sure Tony can speak to this with like sports stars and other people that you've interviewed. When you can Google them, you want to be careful about getting too personal. And if you have to go personal, don't put the personal question at the beginning, because if you start at the beginning with a personal question, they might feel like you're being over invasive and a little bit pushy, that they're going to give you a little bit more of a sour rest of the interview. You want to kind of chummy them up first, and I'm sure you've done this too. You want to get close to them and get them thoughtful questions. And then if you have to ask that, whether it's you wanting to or say a boss that wants to hear this personal question, put it in a little bit further in. So you build the rapport, you build that connection with them first, and then from there, hopefully they're trusting you enough that they feel now comfortable. And if they don't want to answer, it's up to you if you want to push or move on. I'm the always person, if they don't want to talk about it, I move on because I don't want to sour the rest of our interview.
Yeah. No, that's good stuff right there. Speaking of Jeff
Yeah.
Conway here on the forum, Jeff, you mentioned COVID earlier, and this is a topic I do like to touch with a lot of our guests, just because it really has changed kind of the way we do things. Maybe I don't know how much for you, but I did want you to touch base on how it was for you during COVID, and then did you adjust? Did you change your interview format maybe, or your way of approaching it? How
Yeah.
did COVID affect you?
Well, in the somewhat playful way, it was tough because I couldn't give my gifts anymore. Like I could be like, hey, I can mail this to you, but that's about it. That was different. But
Yeah.
yeah, you had to maneuver. But luckily, we had the technology. I think Zoom. That's why we're still doing this right now. Since COVID, we thought like after the world opened up again, we go back to in person. No, like we have this technology. We still use it. Like it's not going anywhere. We're gonna still do these virtuals because it's easier on people. But I still think you can't beat an in-person interview if you can. Like I just love the face-to-face rapport. I feel like people connect with you sometimes better just to be in person, no matter how good this can be between us, Tony. But yeah, I think COVID changed a lot for a lot of media people. It's made it a lot more virtual. But again, I think you still can't beat when you can do the in-person. It's just more exciting too, especially with celebrities. You can't get the selfie. You can get the selfie on like a screenshot of a laptop, but to get like the actual press in person is just you can't beat it. I love the human interaction. Again, post COVID, we were all stuck away from each other. I'm constantly still these 2 3 years later, like, hey, I want to hang out with you since we can, So that's my take on COVID broadcasting post COVID.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. It affected all of us, and we all had to make some changes, and now, like I said, a podcast just blew up from, I think, it was there, right? But everyone was home talking on a mic
Yeah,
all of a sudden,
yeah. Mhm.
So do you do you podcast here and there as well, or
I don't podcast host myself. I've been thinking about doing that when I can find the time ahead. But I've been a guest on several podcast groups and networks and what's that, and I love to be a guest. So that's fun.
what's the most nervous you've been to talk to someone? I mean,
Hmm.
we always get nervous. You talked about that earlier in the forum, but what's one
Yeah.
of them that where you just were like, man, I've got to get this one right, or I got to control my nerves because you're a fan, or maybe
Yeah.
can you think of one maybe it was a couple?
Hmm. There's been a lot. It's been a lot. Again, I keep going back to Holly Berry. I just want to make sure I got that one right, because they have me on a red carpet. So there's like 8 journalists, and she just walked around as journalists. So if you kind of like screw up in your moment, she can just keep walking like a revolving door if she wants to. So like again, you have to like get them in those moments. So I said that was one of mine. Um, Beyond that, I mean, like Kevin Hart was super cool, and I wanted to make sure he was going to be running the Chicago Marathon. So I had like a poster made that says "The Heart of Chicago," HART, to like help prep him for his Chicago Marathon run. It was an in-person interview too in Chicago,
Mhm.
and he loved it. And again, you don't know when you make these little gifts, these little things. They might be like, "Oh, thanks,"
Yeah,
or they can be really into it, and you have to be ready either way. Like what I mean? They may not give you the rise that you wanted, and you need to be ready to maneuver as a journalist, as a broadcaster,
yeah,
because not everybody's going to have the reaction that you hope for. You
yeah.
know.
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Just a reminder to our audience: in about 10 minutes here, we are going to open up the floor for questions for Jeff. So please get them ready. You can even place them in the chat now. And our favorite person, Linda, she's going to be queuing those questions up on the screen like that. We can read them, and Jeff can answer them as well. Jeff, one thing when I was a teacher, I on day one of class, I always gave this introduction, but part of my introduction involved this. It said, there will be a moment in time where you feel like, should I be doing this? Is this the path I'm supposed to have? Right? You start to
Hmm.
question, your decision to pursue an education on this, or maybe you've graduated, you're in it, and now you're asking yourself, should I be doing this? Jeff, I'm sure
Hmm.
you've had this question yourself. I mean, I think we all have had that type of
Yeah.
question. How have you handled that? If you've had it, but how have you handled that? And if not, what advice would you give to someone who has thought
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to be honest, Tony, like no matter what I've done so far, I still have those thoughts daily, which you'd hope that you wouldn't anymore, but they happen. Sometimes things aren't working well, or the momentum you had before with interviews are just not happening right now, and there's a little bit of a drought, and you start playing a little bit of a mental game. But you kind of have to learn that, like, keep going, be tenacious, know it's going to be a hard day, and embrace it, but keep working hard to get the next interview, because once you get that next interview or you get that next project, it makes all those rough days part of the journey up to that glory day again. So that's the mindset that I always go at, is just there's going to be hard days. As long as you acknowledge that and know that's not going to be always cookie cutter great, um, that and if this is really what you want to do and feel like you're meant to do in this world, then you can't stop. Um, Sometimes you have to take a break because of work or finances or family, and you have to be smart there, of course. But if you can swing it, um, it can be worth it as long as you stay with it, get clever, monetize it, make money off of it, find ways to. Um, yeah. So I hope, yeah, that's how I go at it. There's a lot of rough days, but know that that next glory day will come. You just got to be patient. As annoying as that may be, you got to be patient.
yeah. Yeah, patience is very valuable
Yeah.
nowadays, especially in our industry. Jeff,
Yeah.
if anybody wanted to do what you're doing, right? If they wanted to become an interviewer, and go on their own platforms and present these. What is a starter kit for them? What would you present? What are a couple of things that you would suggest they would start with? It could be equipment wise, it could be platform. What do you suggest they do to get started?
Honestly, I would say it's practice. Like, even if you want to be like a celebrity interviewer like I do, go home, speak with a parent, speak with a sibling, speak with a cousin, and just like interview them about their own life. Ask them like the smallest things, like, what did you do with your day? What's your biggest inspiration in life? They don't have to be a celebrity. It's just a way of getting used to having these conversation talking points and feel comfortable and having a good presentation and a good delivery. You know, Practice on people around you, practice on your fellow student, but
Mhm.
practice on your teacher, practice on Tony. You know what I mean? Like, I would say practice is the first thing, because nothing that I'm doing now was like this. I've been doing this for 16 years, highs and lows, learning from my mistakes, where I do feel like at this point, I feel fortunate that I don't want to use the word mastered it, but I've gotten to the point where I have zero doubt when I go into an interview. And that feels really good to get to that point. It takes time. But it feels really good to when you go into an interview and you have no, like, oh gosh, can I do this? I'm like, yes, of course I can. Like, this is what I do. This is what I live for. I'm good at adapting. I'm good at improv. Um, so yeah. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. No, absolutely, absolutely. Do you have, like, if they did this, do you just suggest posting to like a Facebook or maybe YouTube instead, YouTube Shorts, or
Yeah.
Instagram Reels? What would you suggest you do?
Yeah, I say build a YouTube channel if you can be consistent with that. Use your Instagram, do Snapchat, do TikTok, do everything. Again, going back to what you talked about earlier, Tony, branding. People follow you for a reason, so keep it consistent, keep it fresh, keep it unique. Because if you're doing what everybody else is doing, they might be like, well, okay, I can see this with 85 other people, But if you're doing something special, whether it's funny, whether you're getting a special person every time, you got to find the ways of like why you, as awful as that may sound, why you that I should tune in for. You got to give them special reason that intrigues them, whether it's a funniness, a playfulness, a seriousness that you get to that's deeper than most people. Whatever that is, you got to find what makes you and your execution unique.
Yeah. In the industry, we know what we call we have what are called markets, and each city has a place in it. And if you didn't know, for those of you that are on the forum here, New York being the number one market in the United States, Los Angeles being number two, Chicago being number three, and Houston being number four. I don't know if that number's changed recently with Houston, but I think they're still the fourth largest market in the United States. Do you find that your interviews are mainly in the top markets, or travel to them more often than not, or does that matter?
Yeah, I don't mind my shift. I actually have to make sure I have my charger because I don't want to lose you guys. So give me like a half second. You're gonna follow me to my charger.
All good. Take your time.
Yeah. So like you were saying, Tony, right now I'm in New York. It is the number one market. I'm only here. I've been here for a month. I'm usually in Hollywood, which is LA, which is number two. Chicago, like you said, is number three, which is awesome. And there's several other big major markets all around the country. And yeah, so they're all great markets. But again, sometimes you'll get a little bit more of a get because they want to work with your market. So I do think Chicago's a great one, New York, LA. You can do other ones. And you should do other ones because sometimes you can become a big fish in a small pond, like in other smaller states sometimes that are smaller media groups. So you got to kind of choose what broadcaster you want to be. Do you want to be one that fights like crazy in LA? Or do you want to kind of create your own niche in Idaho? And I'm not trying to even be funny. Like sometimes they have a want out there that doesn't exist. If you're willing to work in Idaho, you can become the Howard Stern of Idaho. And that's actually pretty cool, as silly as that may sound. So yeah, that's my take on different markets. You got to choose. Do you want to be a big fish in a small pond, or do you want to be competing with a lot of other people? In the major cities, you'll be competing more. Doesn't mean you can't do it. It just makes it a little bit more of a toughness at times.
Have you ever traveled internationally for your interviews as well?
I have not for my interviews, but for producing, I've gone to like Europe, and that's been amazing. Yeah, it's a language barrier. I only speak English and Spanish, but my Spanish isn't great. It's only a minor degree, but más o menos.
Yeah, Spanish, so, okay, very cool.
little bit, yeah. But
there's two cool things about you, Jeff. You speak Spanish, and you've met Bill Daniel, Mr. Feeney, man.
Well, not only have I met him, he's my bestie. Like literally, I've been to his house a million times. I love that guy. I've met his family. We've gone to dinner together. Yeah, they're the best. Yes.
Yeah, that is awesome. If by chance, this is a personal question, and the forum, please forgive me because I'm about to enter that. I'm about to enter that hole again. You have not interviewed Daniel Fishel or any of the crew, right? Will Friedle, Ben Savage.
I've interviewed Ryder Strong before, only because Ryder Strong put out he directed a music video for a rock band a few years ago, and I interviewed him randomly. Everybody else I have not. It's funny though. Ben Savage, who was Corey, the main character in Boy Meets World, he's running for West Hollywood, a politician in West Hollywood. So yeah. He's on a different path, which again, it shows in art broadcasting, you can pivot. You don't have to be stuck in one way. You can pivot and do something new.
Yeah, absolutely. With the podcast, he declined to do it due to his political endeavors. So it's fine. It kind of stunk as a fan, but it's fine.
As a fan, I'm sure it stinks, but I respect it. Oh, I think there's a question that popped up.
Yep, we are now into our Q&A session here. And again, just a reminder to everyone out there, if you while we're doing the Q&A session, if you would like to place more questions in the chat, please do so. We want to get as many questions in there as possible in our 15 minutes left here on the forum. And Jeff, man, just thank you for your time as we continue to do this. It's been nothing but fun here on the forum with you. First question is from Truest Blue. She states, my question for Jeff is, how does he handle negative criticism, and what does he do to keep himself mentally healthy?
That is a really, really good question, because we all see on social media these days, people can live behind a veil of criticism but they would never say it to your face. But it's so easy to do on social media. And it's funny. I just interviewed a woman named Abby Phillip, and she's like the lead CNN anchor at CNN. She's on Newsnight, and she's an amazing. She's only like 36 years old, 35, and she's like the anchor of the nightly news. It's impressive. So I reached out while I was here in LA or New York, and I interviewed her in person at her office, and I took a photo with her and I posted it on social media. And I was wearing, mind you, very very tight pants, but I didn't think they looked that bad. But people, because she shared the photo and she has a very big political background, people, especially unfortunately, because CNN is a little bit more of a liberal news network,
Yeah.
conservatives were like, what is that guy wearing? Does he have a yeast infection? Like the things that they were saying was like, I respect the creativity, but I also don't appreciate it.
Yeah, right.
And I think you need to learn. So to answer your question is a lot of it's noise. I call it noise, and sometimes take it. But I also like if they give me some criticism that I actually can agree with, I'll listen. I can maybe learn.
Yeah.
We do get in our own heads about what we think is great. The audience knows too. But if they're being rude or not helping your cause, you got to mute them out. They're just words. And I think sometimes we take them personally, and I've learned to not because you're not going to make everybody happy. I wish we all could all the time, but some people are just not going to be nice, and you need to maneuver away from that, but you don't need that. Focus on your craft and avoid the noise is what I call it.
Yeah, man, that's one thing most definitely I'm with you on. And it's funny because I'll relate to you as well, Jeff. I do a boxing podcast, and it's very with boxing, with sports, really, we're very opinionated about what we think we see, right? And I had a comment the other day that questioned my knowledge of the game, a sport that I love dearly, my second favorite sport, and it touched it tweaked me a little bit. I was like, I should
Sure.
respond or I
but
should
th-
respond.
but then did you take a moment to kind of get perspective and like not let that fully affect you, because it's easy for them to pick us apart,
Yeah,
but if you don't give them, I say don't give them that power. That's what I say, don't give them that power.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, don't definitely don't do that, and don't let nobody halt you from any of that. So great advice. That was awesome. We have another question from Calvin Beeler. This question is, my question to Jeff: how does he handle networking criticism on social media? I'm assuming it's probably maybe the same question. I don't know if he phrased it differently.
Yeah, so like networking criticism, again, I say you want to be careful though. There is a paper trail on social media, guys. So like, I would say, don't. Even there's times, and I'll speak to certain things. Like I've been seeing, I am a proud Democrat myself, and I'll see things on like X Twitter from like Elon Musk, who's really vocal right now, who owns X Twitter, is very vocal about Trump and supporting him before the election. And there's parts of me that wants to like write a comment when he posts something, be like, you're doing the wrong thing and you're misusing your power here. But really, at the end of the day, I don't want to do that, because what happens if, because he is still, as much as I don't really care for him, he's an influential person, and if the opportunity to interview him came about, someone could be like, no, 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 I saw back on March 22nd, you posted this on one of his comments. So I try to, as a professional, not add if I don't need to. Of course, I want to be human and want to speak up, but sometimes you got to watch out for your career too, I say. And as much as you want to speak up and say the right thing, you got to learn to have a little bit extra filter. So I hope that answers your question.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, you definitely want to be careful. It could tie a knot in your future opportunities. So that's
Yes.
stuff right there. Auntie Kathy listens, says, "How do you handle unexpected questions, the uncomfortable ones?"
Hmm. That's a good one, Auntie Kathy. Well, I'm going to give you an advice for like, usually, we're the ones asking the question, but sometimes the interviewee, when we're the interviewer, will make it awkward. So I interviewed a guy named John C. Riley, who was in Step Brothers. He was in Chicago. He's a pretty funny guy. And I interviewed him on a red carpet in Chicago for a movie where he plays like the dad of like a Columbine-esque shooting student. So it's a very dark film. And he usually is known for his comedies. The first thing I said to him on the red carpet, and I was pretty new, I was like, "You're the funniest guy I know," you know. And he goes, "Oh, well, I'm gonna disappoint you today." He's like, because I'm like, "Well, because your movie's a drama. So tell me, why did you decide?" So I went with it. But then I asked him, because he's originally from Chicago. He went to Brother Rice High School. And so I was like, so what's your favorite memory of Chicago? And he goes, oh, I have a lot of good memories. If I asked you, what's your favorite memory? He's asking me. And I know for a fact my boss does not care about my Chicago memory. They're like, throw it back to him. And luckily in the moment, I had enough improv in me being like, well, now my favorite, I looked at the camera. I said, my favorite memory now is interviewing John C. Reilly. And he goes, oh, good job. So like, you have to be able as a journalist and broadcaster to adapt, because sometimes people are going to do weird things, and you have to be able to adapt to questions that are thrown at you weirdly. So anti-cafe, I hope that's a good example that helps you.
Yeah, that's good. My apologies. I had students walking by me here, so if you see me looking up, it's I was directed.
No worries.
And I got another question from Auntie Kathy. Listen, she says, "How hard is it to navigate the Hollywood machine?"
I would say it's really difficult. It is. Because there's so many people that want to do journalism, and there's so many people going out for it and already have a background, or like made the connection with these publicists and these film studios. So it's tough. But if you have the tenacity, you're creating clever work that is unique and stands out and has maybe whether good viewership, or the person had such a favorable impression with you and talks you up now all the time, wherever that may be, you can do it. So I say, don't be discouraged, but also know that it is a climb, and you have to be willing to sacrifice, because there will be sacrifices along the way. And it really matters in any of these industries of broadcasting. It matters how bad you want it, and so you have to decide that way. Yeah. So that's my best answer for you there.
Awesome. You got another question here from Truest Blue. She says, she asks, sorry, what is your dream project?
I don't have a dream project yet. I have dream interviews still that I really want to do. Like I might have Morgan Freeman coming up soon, which would be amazing just to hear that man say my name, Jeff. That's that narrator voice.
Yeah.
Julia Roberts, Meryl Streep. There's so many people that I still want to interview. So like for me, those are my dream wants still, which is exciting because I'm still going for them constantly. And one of these days, I'm gonna get them.
Yeah. So you're gonna still interview, right? That's you're doing your dream now in regards to interviewing people. It's just the person now at this point.
Yeah, and that it might maneuver into something new, but for now, I like what I do and it feels like the right fit. But I'm always open if a new project comes along. So I think for any of us, you need to be able to pivot. You can keep doing it, but if it's not paying the bills or it's not doing this, you have to find ways to keep doing it, but maybe in a different facet. Like maybe you could be the spokesperson for a company. You're still doing broadcasting, but now you're being a spokesperson for a company and using your communication skills that you learned at Beonair or other places, or one of the media schools. So that's what I would say.
I believe that is. I don't know if we have officers were asking any additional questions. So we'll hang up for a second here as we'll wait for a couple questions if there are any. But Jeff,
Sure.
what I'll ask you another one just to ask you it here. If you had the chance to switch genres in interviewing people, would you do so? And what I mean by that is political or sports. Would that be something you'd be open
Yeah,
to?
I mean, I've been casually doing that even with Abby Phillip, the anchor of CNN. She's not really a celebrity in that way. So like I've been trying to like casually pivot in ways to show that I can. So yeah, and I've interviewed a few sports stars here and there before that are also like entrepreneurs. So yeah, so I've done a little bit of both.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Yeah. What I will say, if I can, awesome. Yeah, thanks, Auntie Kathy. I will say for all of you broadcasters out there, be authentic, work hard, try not to complain, especially in the work environment, because people will remember you for not doing that. And again, find ways to be different, find ways to be creative, find ways that makes you stand out in different ways. Make your own niche, because a lot of people are trying to do this. What makes you different? You may not figure that out tonight, but in the next few weeks, as you're trying things out and experimenting with ideas, find that one and pounce on it. That's my best advice I can give you.
We love it, Jeff. We love it, man. It's definitely awesome speaking to you. You come with a lot of experience on top of being able to instruct students, as I know you have done, and you are a true example of what a media member is in regards to just being entertained, and working on your craft. So, Jeff, I can't wait. We'll be meeting soon, man. I don't know where we're gonna.
Yes.
We'll be meeting soon. This has to happen.
But it's a pleasure to speak with you here, Tony. Keep up the great work too. And for anybody out there that wants to also speak with me further, feel free to follow me on like Instagram at Jeff_Conway. Unfortunately, there's more Jeff Conways out there than you'd think. So Jeff_Conway on Instagram. Happy to connect with you. Oh, do we have one more?
We got one
Did you
more
relocate for work right after school or stick in Chicago? Do you wish you'd live? So I live in LA now. That's a great question, honestly. Part of me does wish I went to LA or New York first, but I was a little bit of a scared kid at the time. Like I wasn't ready for the big bad city. I was like, Chicago, I know enough. I grew up around there. But I like doing Chicago because I think Chicago being the third market, you could still be a little bit of a bigger fish in a small pond. So it kind of equipped me with the skills that I wanted to be ready for New York and LA. So yes, I wish I would have started in New York and LA. I also think that I got to create things that I wouldn't have been able to create without the gate in New York and LA, but I could in Chicago or in a smaller market even than that. So I think sometimes it's good to kind of get your bearings. And they even say in the industry, you can screw up in like smaller markets. New York and LA, you're not allowed to screw up. Like there's no like 2 strikes, you're out. It's 1 strike to an extent. So you want to get those out of your system in the smaller markets to learn, so that by the time you get to the bigger markets, you feel like you're ready to ace it and there won't be any problem.
That's awesome stuff.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks, everybody.
You keep traveling, man. Don't go anywhere yet. Linda, I think Linda's going to pop in here. I don't know.
Yeah. Magic. It's magic. Hey, thank you so much, both of you. What a great hour that sped right by. I kind of forgot I was supposed to be listening with reason. I just was enjoying the conversation. And to everybody that joined us, we really appreciate you being here. Jeff, you're just a great influence and really a humble, talented guy. And it's really our privilege to know you and to know that you're connected with our schools. And we invite you to come back. And Tony, you did a beautiful job. You're welcome.
Yes,
I know you're a little bit envious of these relationships, but you guys will talk about it because it's really important to Jeff too.
Yes, you need to come to California and have breakfast with us. You're welcome anytime, Tony. But do it soon. He's 97, so you got to do it soon.
I know. I'm reaching out to you this week. You ready?
Cool. Thank you, Linda. Yes, thank you, Linda. Thank you, everybody, for coming and joining us. And keep up the great work.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Have a good night, everybody, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Bye-bye.